Welcome to the Trails Collective interview series. I'm so happy to have you here. How are you tonight?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. It's good to see you.
So, how was your day today? What's been going on?
Well, I'm a teacher, so I'm off now, which is nice. And we actually had a friend come up with his family, and we played in the water today. It was nice.
Oh, that sounds lovely. Because you've been working pretty hard these past couple months. I'm sure the transition from teaching, which already you teach in a very a rough neighborhood, I guess it's Rochester, and now to going completely online, that must have been a really big learning curve for you and for your students.
Yeah, it was strange. I feel like I did a lot more like social work at the end of this year and a lot less teaching. And some kids did really well with online learning, and other kids, it was a real struggle. So I feel like I had done a lot of professional development, a lot of classes on different platforms and different programs online. So that made it easier for me. Like I already had kind of some background knowledge to pull things together, but it was a challenge. So we'll see what the fall brings. But I have an online class for students who are interested for over the summer. So that's been fun, like to still talk to them and do some work.
Well, we'll come back to that later in this because I mean, this is a trail running interview series, so we should probably talk about that like a little bit. But so I first met you, I guess the first time was when you and Eric just invited me to stay at your house and run half of the many on the Genny course because I was very afraid that I was going to get lost. So you and Eric are both, in addition to having your own trail running company, you also are the founding members of TrailsRoc. So we talked a little bit about that in the episode where you and Eric told us about your 40-mile race, but how did you get started with trail running in general? I know there was like either donuts or bagels involved. Yeah.
Well, that was how I got started road running. So I grew up playing sports, but mostly soccer. That was kind of my sport. I ran track 2 seasons, but it was like I needed to stay in shape for soccer. So there was, all the travel leagues, and I had a little gap of time. And I ran track. I hated it. I was a sprinter. I have no idea why. I'm not a sprinter. I am not built for speed. And I did not enjoy track at all. So then when I met Eric was an amazing runner in high school. And he was like, come run. I'm like, is there a soccer ball? I'll run for a soccer ball. But so we had been house hunting further into our relationship. And there's a local 5K, the Bruegger's Bagel 5K, and we were going to get bagels before we would go look at houses. And I was like, oh, free bagels. We should do this. And Eric was like, yeah, that's a great idea. So we signed up. And then I was like, what's a 5K? And he was like, 3.1 miles. I was like, why would you let me sign up for 3 miles? That's a terrible idea. So I don't know. I mean, I ran roads for a couple of years, I would say. We did a couple shorter trail races, but mostly I was on the roads. And then, I don't know, like once I really started running on the trails, it was really hard at first. Like that transition period, I think is challenging. It was hard, like physically, my body hurt differently because you used such different muscles. And then also it was really hard for me at first to like let go of time because it's just not the same, like road running versus trail running, So that was a really big challenge for me too. But once I got over both of those things, it was like, oh, this is amazing. Like, why was I ever on a road? So.
Can we just put a pin in Bruegger's for a second? So I totally now would do a 5K for Bruegger's as well. Not because it's like anything better than CTV where I work, but because I went there for the first time ever this past Saturday, and one bagel cost me $2.24. Nothing on it, just the bagel. And I was like, but I never, working in the service industry, I never haggle the price, especially because the employees can't but for a second I was like, okay, I don't want anything on it, just in the bag. So, I mean, that's like a pretty good prize. So I feel like you made the right decision on that 5.
Anything for carbs.
Sure. I mean, the bagel was a cheesy hash brown bagel. So I was like, okay, it's pretty good. I mean, it was pretty
good?
It was good. Yeah, on its own, it was great. I was like, but I could see bringing it home like an egg. Yes. Gotcha. So, how long, so when you started on the roads, did you do like marathons or half marathons? What was your favorite distance?
I don't know, actually. I think it was like a general progression. So I ran a lot of 5Ks, and then 10Ks are really hard to find. There's really not a lot of them. I think I ran 1 or 2 though. And then Eric asked if I would run a half marathon, and I had no idea. What I was getting myself into. But I ran a couple of half marathons, and then I stepped up to the marathon distance. And around the same time, I think, as my first marathon, there is a local race here, and there's 3 races over the course of the weekend. So there's 2 shorter races and then a long race on Sunday. And Eric asked if I would do that with him. That was trail, all 3. He asked if I would do that with him, and he told me if I did the 2 shorter races by myself, he'd do the long race with me. And so I was like, sure. And when we finished the long race, so we finished the whole weekend worth of races, I was like, I feel more accomplished now than I did when I ran the marathon, like my first marathon, which had been a couple of months, I think, before. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have a favorite distance.
What marathon did you run?
What was that?
What marathon did you run?
I did the Corning Marathon, the Wine Glass, and then Buffalo.
Buffalo's the best.
I was just gonna say, that's yours, right?
So good. I just love Buffalo, and I feel like I love following your sister on Twitter. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Just loving Buffalo. Corning's also very good. I've been encouraged to run that one too, but I mean, I've really only run 4 marathons, so I've got time. I'm like, that's fine.
I was just gonna say, you've got plenty of time. Yeah, I liked it. I mean, it's been a while since I did that one, but it was fun.
So I totally agree that going to the trail, even if it's 10 miles or shorter, it's just so different that it is a lot harder. It's like comparing a 20-minute workout of intervals to a long run. They're both hard, but in different ways.
Yeah, and it's just, what do you want better, or what do you like better? Which difficulty would you prefer?
So when you trained for these, did you follow a plan, or was it more willy-nilly, like the marathons, I mean?
No, I definitely had a plan. I think it was just something I found online or in Runner's World or something like that. So I followed a plan for the marathons. But it wasn't there are some plans that are very specific, and there's, every day has its purpose, and these were not really like that. Do you know what I mean? It was just easy runs generally.
Yeah. So has Eric ever coached you? I feel so I'm very interested in that. So Eric was a very good runner. I will get the story from him. We don't need to talk about him. He's got whatever. But he has coached you a little bit, right? So what's that dynamic like?
I guess maybe for some people that would be weird or hard to have somebody telling you kind of what you should be doing. But it's never really been hard for us, I guess. I don't know. He reads so much. He has so much good knowledge about running. So it's I would be silly not to take advice from him. Do you know what I mean? I know that he knows what he's talking about. And he is really good at encouraging me and not putting up with BS excuses. You know what I mean? So I'll be on a run and things will not be going well, and I'll be texting this is terrible, I feel terrible, I just want to quit. And he's just head down and grind it out. You just got to do what you got to do. What if it feels terrible on race day? What if you hit a low point on race day? What if it's raining? What if the weather's not great? What if it's hot and humid? You just have to do what you have to do. So he's really good about, like I said, like keeping me on track. So
is it one of those situations where like, does he ever give you like unsolicited advice, or do you ask for it?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't think it's necessarily one or the other. It's more just like we'll have a conversation about what I'm planning or what I would like to do, or a race that I think is interesting. Do you know what I mean? And then from there, the conversation just kind of flows. Like, this is what you could do. This is what you should. You know what I mean?
Hold on 1 second. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. No, you're fine.
Laurel, I'm doing an interview right now. I'll talk to you later. Bye. It's my sister.
Oh.
It's like, stop it.
That's funny.
No, she's great. She was looking at apartments today, so I just wanted to hear how it was going.
Yeah.
I'm excited for her. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, Eric is great. I was just wondering, like, I always just want to know the dynamic between, like, because I mean, you obviously weren't, you always hear those stories about like, he was my college coach and we weren't attracted to each other when I was running for him, but it's love, and that wasn't your guys' situation, I know, so it's definitely a little bit different, whereas and also you're more of like a recreational runner, so I mean, him giving you like a couple tips isn't like, so we need to work on your VO2 max this week, Sheila, and then you're going to go to bed and get 9.5 hours of sleep, and then in the morning I'm going to make you your oatmeal, like, right. It's more, right. It's not that. Yeah. His is more like, I'll hand you a beer. Like, here you go. So when you started running on trails, was it just like, did you just like fall in love with it, or?
I did. I hated hills, like hated. And I remember, so TrailsRoc had a race. We actually gave it to Rochester Running Company this year. But we had a race, the 0 SPF half marathon.
Yeah, I've done it.
The first time that I was ever on that trail, it was like super early morning. It was me, Eric, I think Ben, Sean, like the founders, the TrailsRoc founders. And it was still dark when we started. It was cold. It must have been like January or February. So I just remember being annoyed that it was so early, annoyed that it was so cold. And then you start going up a hill, and I was so miserable. And we got to the bottom of Power Lines Hill. So that's not even a mile, I don't think, from the start. And I fell on the way down because it was slippery and icy. And everyone laughed except for me because I was already in a pissy mood. And I was like, I'm going back to the car. I'm like, I'll just see you guys when it's done. And Eric was like, all right. And I turned around to go back up the hill, and I realized how dark it still was. And I was like, nope, just kidding. I'll come with you guys because I don't want to go by myself in the dark.
So wait, it wasn't the race though?
No. This was, this was like scouting the course basically before the race became ours officially. So yeah, I mean, I loved being outside. I loved being in the trees and in the woods, but hills were kind of like just not my jam, not my thing. And I don't think I really started to like hills.
Appreciate them.
Yeah, until I started training for Virgil Crest. So my first 50 miler was the Virgil Crest's 50 mile. And I was terrified because of how hilly it was, but also had the mindset, just train for it and you'll be fine, which I was totally fine. And I trained, I think, probably perfectly for it. But that was when I started to realize how much stronger a runner hills make you. So even though it's not always comfortable to run that way, it makes other running more comfortable. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Right now, my training is, because we don't have a track, so my coach is having me run up a hill, and like it's like 90 seconds easy, 90 seconds medium, 90 seconds hard, and like I'm finally learning like with repetition to like run them at the appropriate effort. And yeah, I feel like I'm getting stronger. I mean, looking pretty buff in the mirror. You know?
Yeah.
But okay, that's a big jump from like your first trail race to Virgil Crest. So, and not everybody that does trails runs ultras. Matt Lipson
No.
will tell you that.
Yes.
And I talked to him, he's great. So, like take me from that first trail race, that like falling on your ass on the Crescent Trail to Virgil. Like what was the progression? Did you always did you like, how did you hear about ultras? So what's going on?
I don't actually know. Like I don't remember when that change happened. But I don't think I did any really long trail races. I'm trying to remember, but I don't think I did any like trail halves or trail marathons. Yeah, I don't think I did any. But I just really started to like being in the woods. And I think in Rochester, we had a community of runners. We have a really awesome trail running community here.
Yeah, you do.
And some people in the trail running community started doing all these ultras. And it was fascinating to me because it's like, I'm always amazed by what a human body is capable of. You know, like I still remember the first time I ran 5 miles and I was like, oh my God, I ran 5 miles. Like 5 miles? That's crazy.
Every time I run over 10 miles, I'm like,
yeah.
Like, my brain, I'm like, this is a long run.
Yeah. And so I think, you know, watching people do these ultra marathons and, you know, knowing people who had run 100 miles, I was like 100 miles at once. That's, so I think it kind of like got into my head a little bit. Like, what could I do? What would I be capable of doing? And we were having so much fun. Like there were so many people that were training for such long races that there was always someone to run with if you wanted to run long. And so it became like it really was like our social circle became running. So, you know, some people, I don't know what people do for fun. What do people do for fun if they're not running in the woods?
I don't know.
But so I think it kind of became just our social circle was always in the woods together. We were always running together, you know, so 2-3 hour training runs in the woods that was like, instead of hanging out at someone's house and drinking, we would go to the woods and run. So yeah, so I think it just kind of like was almost a natural progression. And I think, I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure that we had we had been aid stations at Virgil in the past also. Actually, we definitely had. And so that was cool too, like to actually be there and seeing all these ultra runners. And that's like, man, if you need motivation for anything in your life, go to an ultra and just volunteer because it's incredible. The athletes are incredible. The people that are there crewing the athletes are incredible. The people volunteering are incredible. It's like this huge labor of love for 150 people to accomplish this huge goal, you know, but there's all of these other people that are there just like giving everything that they can to make sure that people accomplish what they wanted to accomplish. So it was really motivating. So that was another, I guess another piece to the puzzle was just being at ultras and seeing what was happening.
Also, I feel like trail runners and ultra runners, like everybody looks normal. Like, you know, in marathons, like you see Shalane or you see Meb and you're like, I don't look like that. So it's a little bit of a barrier. But like the people, like when you go to an ultra, like there are just so many like different like ways people run, ways people like do things. And it's like, hey, if they can do that, like, why can't I do it too? And I think that's really motivating. And especially you found a bunch of friends that are like, well, I mean, this person's doing this and like, I like to hang out with them, so I might as well go too, you know? I mean, I know I've made friends that way. So, I mean, it makes tons of sense.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like some of the people who we have become friends with through trail running, it's like, I don't know that our paths would have crossed or we would have become friends if it weren't for running. You know what I mean? Like just totally different, you know, whatever, live in different places or totally different career paths, different lifestyles. But once you're on the trails, it's like everybody's just one, you know, we're all the same.
Yeah. Once you see somebody yakking on the side of the track, you're like, all right, we're in this together, baby.
Right.
So,
right. And everybody hits those low points. Like, it's just a matter of time. If you haven't hit yours yet, it's coming.
It'll come.
Right.
So, explain to me why you chose Virgil. That race doesn't exist anymore.
I know, I'm sad.
Yeah. And what was training like for that? Did Eric train with you? How did you go into that one?
So I had been looking online at various ultras, and because we had been volunteering with Ian for his races, we had I can't remember if it was reduced or a free entry, but basically I was looking at all these other races, and then I kept coming back to Virgil, but I knew how hilly it was and the elevation, and that scared me, honestly, because I was like, I don't know if this is a good choice for a first ultra.
Have you not learned to walk the hills yet?
Well, and that's exactly, you know, but still, like, that's still a lot of elevation gain. But I just kept coming back to, you know, it's a free entry, so like I might as well.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for anything free. Like, that's how I ran my first 50K. Ian was like, yeah, you can come run. I was like,
yeah.
Right.
Well, and I think, like, looking back, I guess, and what I always say to people, because, you know, people will say, I just don't know if I can do that, or like, this isn't a good first time choice. And I'm like, none of it is a good first time choice. Like, 50 miles is crazy. You have to be nuts to say, I think I'm going to do 50 miles. But also, if you say it and you train for it and you really want it, you can do it. Like, I don't know. If I can do it, and if Eric and I can do it, like what we just did, then you can do it. It's just a matter of how stubborn you want to be.
Yeah. It just might be a painful day.
Yeah, well, and it was funny, we were talking about that actually on the back half of the course when we ran the Many on the Genny course, 2 weeks ago? We were talking about that because when I first started training for ultras, I had read that quote that whatever it is, like, you know, it only hurts to a certain point and then it doesn't hurt anymore. And but so in my head, I read it as like anymore. And I was like, oh, so the pain goes away. And now I'm like, oh no, the pain doesn't go away, honey. It just is there and it doesn't get worse than that. But like, so.
Yeah, I remember when the last time I ran Cayuga at mile 10, I was actually coming into your aid station and it's a really like rocky downhill.
Really
and
downhill,
I cracked my ankle at like mile 10, but by the end of and it hurt like bitch, like seriously, it was horrible. But by the end of the race, I couldn't feel it anymore because everything else
hurt. Yeah.
And I was like, well, it didn't get any worse. And like, so, I mean, I couldn't really feel it until the next day when I tried to get up. So
I mean, you're like, oh yeah, that thing I did.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I can feel worse.
Yeah, it's terrible. But, and I don't know, like people all the time, you know, especially at work, people are like, you're doing what? They're like, why? And I'm like, I don't actually know. Yeah, it's just what we do. Like,
yeah.
It's just a day in the woods with friends, you know? And they're like, you could just hang in the woods. And I'm like, yeah, but it wouldn't be as fun. Like, you just wouldn't feel as good and as accomplished at the end. So.
Yeah, more purpose.
Yes, exactly.
And also, it's always better to move than to sit still. Like,
I think so too.
It's just so much more, it gives so much more life.
Yes. And you see so much
hills. And what's happening here? Like, are you starting to like it, or are you starting to accept it?
I think it was acceptance. I still don't like hills. You know what I mean? Like, it's still not something that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go crush some hills today. But I can appreciate why I need to do them. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's no doubt that you feel way more accomplished, you know, like I can do a 5 mile flat run and feel good, but I can do 5 miles of hills and be like, wow, all right. You know,
and so then there's some runs where you get to that level of fitness where the hill isn't that bad. And you're like, oh yes, Oh,
And
not
then,
huffing and puffing as much.
yes, and that definitely happened, like training for that first 50 miler, which was really cool. There's a park here called Ellison, and there's some decent hills in that park, and there's one called Coyote's Den, and it's, I mean, straight uphill, pretty rooty, and I had hated it for the longest time. And we were there for a group run one night, and I just remember getting halfway up, and I was like, oh, I'm halfway up already. I was like, this is actually not bad. And then I was like, who are you? Like, this isn't bad. This is terrible. But yeah, so you definitely at some point get strong enough that it doesn't feel as bad anymore, which is it's encouraging because it's progress.
Here's a trick. This is what I do sometimes, or well, how I explain it. Because my roommate the other day found out that I run up the slope, like the corner, like it's pretty hilly in Ithaca, you know.
Yeah.
So she found out that like I run up the slope almost every day. And I'm like, well, considering I roll out of bed and go for a run, I'm still half asleep. And then by the time I wake up, I'm on top of the slope. So it's okay. Like, you should try that.
Yeah, I think too in the dark, when I had never really noticed it before. I don't know why. But at Virgil, the start was in the dark. And I remember going up one of the first hills and I was like, oh, this isn't bad because I can't see where I'm going. So I can't look and be like, oh God, this is going to take another 5 minutes, you know?
Yeah.
But like one foot in front of the other, you're going to get where you're getting to eventually.
Mm-hmm. So training went well though, like no hiccups and
No, it went great. So I felt good and I got to the start line and it was like a blast. I had so much fun. I hurt horribly, but it was just a really fun day, and it was just such a cool feeling to know at the end, like, oh, I just ran 50 miles. Cool.
So what was your longest run up till then?
I think I did do 28 miles. I did the SPF course twice.
Okay. Cool.
So, yeah.
So were you or Eric the first to run an ultra?
We actually ran an ultra together. That wasn't my first ultra, I don't think. No, it wasn't. We did a 50K together. The Dirty German. Yeah,
I love those. I did the Naked Prussian.
Yeah, I really want to get back there and do some more of their races because it was so much fun. We had a great time. So
the trails are so nice.
Yes. Yeah.
Like runnable. The whole thing is runnable. Like It's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
super cool.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and they have a ton of races now. Like every year, I feel like they've added a couple. So I don't know. It's really cool. If people haven't done those races, I would recommend them.
Yeah, and everything is very like uber endurance sports, I think it's
called.
And they're all just so nice, and that man is just he's lovely.
Yeah, everyone was really cool. So it was a good race experience for sure.
So what was your finish time at Virgil?
Just over 13 hours, I think 13:15.
That's pretty good for first one.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I was pretty happy with it. I do not like being in the woods at night. I don't like it when I'm with people. I don't like it I really don't like it if I'm alone. But even with people, it makes me very nervous. I don't know why. And so I was like, I just don't want to be in the woods alone at night at the finish. So like we started in the dark, but it was fine because there were lots of people. You know, you're at the start, so everybody is still kind of clustered. And then when I had come through the last aid station, Eric was like, here, take your headlamp. And I was like, I don't need that. And he's like, just take it just in case. And I was like, okay. And I'm glad I had it because I did need it in the woods. And these two guys were behind me and they like stayed with me the whole time, which was great. They didn't have headlamps and I didn't make that connection. And the finish line for Virgil, you like pop out of the woods and then you run around like a field and a pond. And we hit the clearing and they just bolted. And I was like, come on. I was so mad because I was like, you were only able to run like you were running because I was here with my headlamp.
Yeah, it's like, now we're a team, okay?
Yeah, that's why I'm like, now we finished together. Sorry, dudes.
Yeah.
But
that's really cool.
Yeah, it was a really good race experience. It was a lot of fun. And like I said, I felt mostly pretty good and training went well. I was not injured. It was good.
So what year was that?
2015, maybe? 14 or 15.
So were you involved in TrailsRoc at that point?
Yeah.
When did TrailsRoc start?
8 years ago.
Okay. So explain your involvement in TrailsRoc and like explain what that is.
So TrailsRoc is the local trail running organization in Rochester. And back in the day, there were 4 guys. Eric was one of them. And they were constantly talking on Twitter about the trails in Rochester, but everybody was from a different part of Rochester. And so everybody had like a different trail system that they really loved. And they would talk about them all the time. And then they were like, we should talk about this in person. And so one day my husband was like, I'm going to go have dinner with some guys I met on the internet. And I was like, what? This is weird. But they had dinner and they decided that there should really be like one place to kind of put all of the trail information from Rochester so that like people would have a localized source of information for the trails. So that was kind of how it started, but I was there. I mean, I was always there. And not long after they started meeting, I started pointing out, you know, like, especially for women, that it might be weird for them to meet up because they had started like talking about doing meetups to go run. And I was like, well, for women, that might be weird to meet up with guys that they don't know to go into the woods. So I don't know, from there, it just kind of like got a little out of control, I guess. Like
I mean, you guys are taking over. Like I love you guys. Like seriously, to my heart.
It's like it's so much fun, and it's just funny because I just would never have guessed like this is where running would take me or us. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I'm so thankful for it, like for all of it, all of the people we've met, all of the races we've hosted, all of the trail work we've done. All the volunteering at aid stations we've done. It's just been like such a positive experience and such a good way to spend our time, you know? So, yeah, I mean, over the years, we've had a variety of different races that we've hosted. And
what's your favorite?
My favorite race that we've hosted?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a toss up. So after SPF, so I still was not sold on hills. We did SPF. It's a really hard race to manage, like to direct for. And after the first year, I actually like literally told some of our friends, I was like, I just don't know if our marriage is going to make it through this. Like it was just really hard. It was a lot. And so that night of the race, we went out for dinner afterwards. And I was just like, we should do something shorter and more fun for newer runners. And Eric was like, you said no more races. And I was like,
yeah, so pause there. What do you mean you're married? You didn't think your marriage was gonna make it through.
Well, it was like a joke, but like also it was just stressful, you know, because
well, you're a race director and I know people want to hear. So yeah, you can talk about it. Like, I know, you and Eric are solid. I know that.
Yeah.
But like, so what is some of the things that people don't normally think about that when you started TrailsRoc, you didn't think you were going to deal with?
Well, I think that first year especially, we didn't have a lot of equipment, so that was a big issue. So, you know, there were lots of nights where we were driving around picking up like anybody who had a water jug. We would pick up water jugs or pick up tables, pick up pop-up tents, because we just didn't have all that equipment. And then
Sno-Cone machine.
that's relatively new. And so, you know, picking up all of that, organizing all of that. Zero SPF has a lot of road crossings. So finding volunteers for all the road crossings, coordinating with them. That first year, I think had, I don't even know, the course isn't out and back. I know you know that, but I don't know if everybody watching does. So the course isn't out and back. And I think we had like 4 or 5 water stops that first year, just one direction. So then you hit them on the way back. It was way too much water. Like we did not need that much water on the course, but we just didn't know. And so coordinating all those drop-offs, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Marking the whole course. And so it's stressful. And then our board ended up, most people weren't available that day for the race. So we had already, you know, the race was happening and then it was like, oh, people aren't available. And so then it became even more stressful. So we've nailed it down a whole lot more. Oh, course marking. We didn't have flags that first year. We literally used yarn that we tied to like tree branches. It was a hot mess. Like looking back, I'm like, oh man, we were, whew.
But the good thing about you and Eric, and also with some other people like Scott, like Laura, you guys show up. Like you seriously do. Like you show up. Like I could probably be like, tonight, like I could just like, Sheila, I think this weekend I'm gonna like run 100 miles in Cayuga Trails. Can you and Eric come out? And you'd probably be like, yeah. Like, I mean, you guys just like, you really do show up for the people and the community. And I think that's so important. And I think that's why TrailsRoc is so successful, is because like, I know I can count on you, and I know that everybody else can too. And that is so important, especially with like the past 4 years that you and Eric have had with up and down and injury and things like that. And just, you know, dealing with your lives. And in addition to these companies, like you have never not shown up for all of us. And I think that's so important.
Well, and everybody shows up for us too. So it's like, it's just a really cool community. Like we're just, you know, we're so fortunate. Like we're just really lucky to be a part of it. And I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. You know, like I said, if you would have told me 10 years ago, this is what we would be doing, I would have been like, no, okay. You know, like
it's like, that's just another thing that's awesome about the trail running community, but especially like I see it with you and Eric, like just selfless. Like, I mean, and I think that's also that, like, it is though. It's just like people, I feel like when I started, and I still do, like if I were to ever do a race where I need a crew, I would feel so like I'm asking people to do this, like this is, but like the people that would come that like would be on my crew, like they would give up their day. You know, it's like I was on somebody's crew. I love them enough to give up my day or 2 days or whatever and help them. And that's just how the whole community is. And I think that's just why it attracts so many people, is like we really do just like being outside all day, if we're running or not, or just like drinking at an aid station or something. That's just like what we do. And it's really exemplified in TrailsRoc.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, like I said earlier, you know, you go to an ultra marathon and you just hang out, like even if you're not doing anything, just to watch all of the people and the way that people interact is just really a special experience. My family came to the first Many on the Genny, and I think that was one of the first races that they had been at that we put on. They'd been at a couple, but like that was one of the first, and also their first ultra marathon. And I just remember my dad afterwards being like, that was incredible. He's like, all those people, just, you know, people that were running like that, but he's like, but also people that are there all day to just make sure that you have food and water. And, you know, he was just really amazed by the community. Like, I'm just going to keep saying the word community.
Yeah, I mean, my dad came to that Cayuga Trails race that I was talking about where I crushed my ankle. And, you know, the running is like, he and I do not see eye to eye at all, obviously, if you've read any of my tweets. But one thing he does understand is like my running a little bit, just how it's important to me and stuff. And so he just wanted to come to one of the finishes of the race. And so I invited him to this because I figured at least he could probably find someone to talk to at the end. And he did, but then he also, like, his comment, he was like, wow, like all the different kinds of people like finishing and also helping out. And it was just, he's like, I you know, half of those people, if you would have told me they were a runner or an ultra runner, I probably wouldn't have believed you, but now I see. And I just, you know, it's so awesome how like inclusive people are. And it's just a whole different community, and it gets addicting when you're in it. And I'm very fortunate that I get to be in the trail and the road running community. I just together.
Both of them. Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the Cayuga races, it may have been I think it was the first race. And Ian had like literally some of the best trail runners from the country come out because it's the trail championship. And Eric was going to write a piece for, I think, Trail Runner magazine. And so he had interviewed them. And so we had kind of talked to a whole bunch of them. And then seeing them hanging out at the finish line when they had already finished and cheering other runners through, I was like, what other sport do like the best hang out and cheer on Joe Schmo in the back, you know. It was just, it's just so different. Like it's different. It's not like anything else I've ever seen or experienced. So
it's really special. It's really special. It's something
it
I
is
need right now.
I know. Hopefully soon we can all be back.
We'll see. Yeah. So you haven't run an ultra, you said, in a couple years. So what's been holding you back, besides money on the Genny, this past weekend? Why haven't you ran an ultra in a couple years?
I think it was hard for me when Eric started having his injuries. He was great about it. Like he never said stop running. But I started to feel bad because I know how I would feel if I couldn't run, and like the person that I loved was just going out for, you know, when you're training for an ultra, especially, you know, that's like a part-time job basically. And I started to feel really bad about spending so much time, especially when you have limited time because we're working during the day. When I would go out for a run on a Saturday morning and be like, okay, I'll see you like afternoon sometime, you know? And so I don't think, like, it wasn't a spoken thing that I was going to stop running as much. I don't think it was like maybe it was, no, I don't think we really talked about it. I just kind of stopped running really long. So
did you not want to, like, was the want still there, or was it kind of like, I get the sense that you and Eric are a team. You do a lot of things together.
We do.
You know, just it's not the same without him, right?
Yeah. And that was, you know, that was a big piece of it. I think I also was maybe a little bit burnt out, you know, like I had done a whole lot of ultras kind of crammed in a short amount of time, or a short-ish amount of time. And
more than one ultra a year is a short amount of time.
And that's
like, let's think about what we're doing to our bodies here.
Right. That's true. And that was, but so I think, you know, there was an element of burnout to it initially. And then it just kind of snowballed. And, you know, I mean, Eric's been injured for so many years now. So it was almost like solidarity, you know? And I was still running, like I never stopped running altogether, but, you know, there was a point in time, I mean, not long ago, there was a point in time when a 25-mile week would be like, that's a big week for me, you know? So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think, you know, at a few different points, I was like, I'm going to get back into it. And then it was just really hard to like take that step, you know? Like I would hit a 10-mile long run and it would be like, all right, well, I got to double digits, so I'm good. So
yeah, no, I mean, I can imagine it's been up and down past 4 years for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks, you know, like I said in the last time we talked, you know, when you see the person that you care about hurting physically and emotionally, it's just like, it sucks, you know, and there's nothing you can do to make it better. Like there was nothing I could do, you know, nothing I could do, like just be there and be in the suck together, I guess.
You waited with him, like.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm glad that he's back. Like it's good. At one point 2 weeks ago when we were running, I was just like, my spider shield is back, because that's like Eric's main job on the trail is to be so that he can take care of all the spider webs. So
I feel like I do that for Ithaca every morning. I'm like, oh, I got this, guys. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Pretty early.
That's funny. Well, on behalf of everyone that comes after you, thank you.
It's a good time, yeah. Whenever I find a spider, I usually take a picture of it and send it to you. Guys, good. So let's transition a little bit to what your actual day job is. So in addition to like enlightening me about trails and all the other stuff, Eric and Sheila are both teachers in the Rochester City School District, and they're both very outspoken advocates for both educators, kids, and just trying to make the Rochester City School District a better place for learning and for all the people that are involved. So and with the virus that has happened, you guys have been doing remote learning and things like that. So talk to me about like what you do every day, I guess, and then, you know, how like how you're involved in making, I guess, like things better for students, and what your experience has been like this past fall or spring, like just whatever you want to talk about.
So my day job is a teacher. I teach in the Rochester City Schools, like Ellie said, and I am an ENL teacher. English is a new language. So I work every year. It's a little different. I'm certified to teach any grade level. The building that I currently work in is a K-8 building. And last year I worked with 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. So every year the age changes a little bit. Like I've literally worked with, there's not an age I haven't worked with at this point. So this past year I had 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. I love my kids. They're amazing. And I really appreciate being able to push into other classrooms. So part of my day, I pull students out in small groups. The students who are newer or their English proficiency is lower. And then the other part of my day, I push into rooms and I help support in the rooms. So it's cool because I work with, you know, the ELLs, the English language learners, but I also work with all of the gen ed students too. And I've been in my school 7 years now, I think. So it's just really cool because you get to know the kids and you get to know families, and yeah, I like it. It's definitely the job for me.
Yeah, you do seem to thrive. Like just the way you talk about your kids is just it's awesome, because a lot of teachers, you know, they make the jokes like the snide comments, but you know that never comes out of you. So English is a new language. Is that foreign students?
So it's yeah, immigrant students. So Rochester actually has a really diverse population of immigrants and refugees. So I mean, Nepali, Somali, Swahili, Arabic, Chinese, Burmese, Karen, like tons of different languages, kids from all over. It's cool to learn from them. Do you know what I mean? Like as much as I might be teaching them, they're teaching me things all the time too. So it's just, I'm lucky. I'm just lucky. Like it's a really cool job, and it's a really cool experience to be part of kids' growth, you know?
Are they poor students? Is it from like are they students that are like more in like a poverty situation, or is it more like students of professors or something?
No, I mean, the RCSD has a really high poverty rate. It's one of the highest, I think, in the country. Almost all of our kids qualify for free lunch. I forget what the threshold is, but if you hit a certain percentage, they just give free lunches to everybody, and that's the RCSD. Everybody gets a free lunch if they want it. Yeah, no, they're pretty poor, most of them.
So with the remote learning, I know like a big issue would be Wi-Fi to get
Mm-hmm.
Zoom. And then also it's statistically proven that the more kids are out of school, the wider the gap is between like the affluent and the not affluent kids, because the affluent kids are more likely, like their parents are more likely to be like, maybe you should read a book, like when then the kids where their parents are always have to be working, they're just not as supervised or don't have access. So have you been able to still reach your kids through this time of online learning?
Yeah, it was hot. I mean, it was a challenge for sure. We did not give our kids technology. We did towards the end, but my students did not have technology. So Eric and I did kind of like a call out to all of our friends who's got technology laying around that they don't use anymore, that they don't want. A few years ago, before our district got Chromebooks for students, they didn't have anything, and watching them, that's not true. They had some technology, some computers, but it was limited. And watching them like type one letter at a time, I was like losing my mind. So Eric actually had done a GoFundMe to get little mini tablets that connected to a keyboard so that kids could practice. So we had some of those. And then we put out a call to our friends, and people were awesome and gave tons of old technology that they don't use anymore. And then also we had a whole bunch of friends that were just like, can we just give money so that you can purchase whatever you need to purchase for them? So all of the students, all of the ENL students in grades 3 through 5 in my school had something to use by, I don't know, 3 weeks in, I think, to distance learning. Like once it became apparent that we weren't going back, because initially we were like, oh, it's going to be like 2 or 3 weeks and then we're going back to school, you know? And then like 2 weeks went by and it was like, oh yeah, no, that's not going to happen. So kids had technology, which was good, but it's hard to, you know, like, you don't know what other obstacles are happening that are impeding kids' opportunities to learn. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So just because they have technology doesn't mean they have a quiet space to learn, doesn't mean that they're not babysitting because mom and dad are working, doesn't mean that they have Wi-Fi, doesn't mean that, you know, there's all these things, like all of these things that you really have to take into account. So I was really proud. Most of my kids did a really nice job. They worked really hard. And they also had kind of the double duty of a lot of them translating back and forth for mom or dad. So that's a ton to put on kids. The same thing, like, you know, assigning work to kids and thinking that they're going to have the discipline at 8 to sit down and say, like, today I need to do an hour of blah, 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 and an hour of blah, blah, blah. That's a lot to ask of a kid, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, there are adults that can't do that. There are kids in college that can't make online learning work for them because it's like just not, they don't have the organizational skills. So, I mean, online learning is, I heard a thing too, like not to even call it online learning, to call it crisis learning, because we weren't online learning, you know, we were thrown into this. There was no prep time. It was just like, boom, here you go, figure it out. So I don't know. I mean, I miss being in the classroom with my kiddos, but I'm thankful that I think everybody stayed healthy and safe. And I hope that they can figure out how to make that happen in the fall, but I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah, I read an article just like right before I talked to you about, you know, sending kids back. And I mean, Cornell, our local university, they're planning to reopen September 2nd. Ithaca, I think it's early October.
Okay.
But, and, you know, like technically kids have been shown to be more resilient against the virus, but, you know, to me, the first thing I was like, it's like, but wait, these little germ factories, what about the teachers? I mean, you guys are going to have to wear like hazmat suits and like,
I know.
Yeah. So, or like having the kids in there, but then having a teacher like be in like a different room and maybe like filming or something. I don't know. I had a couple of ideas, but yeah, it's going to be very interesting. And it's just one of those things where I keep reminding myself, because I mean, I am not involved in any school, whatever, but you know, sometimes, I mean, you must feel it too with like other industries. You're like, oh, I wish I could do something to solve this. Like maybe like, oh, why am I worrying about it? And I'm like, okay, Ellie, day by day here, like day by day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really feel for you guys, because it is just such a interesting time, but you know, kids are really resilient. And so
they are.
You know, and you have to think that like, even when we had all the resources available and the kids had the Chromebooks, there are some kids that just aren't motivated enough to make it, or they, you know, want to do something else and school just isn't for them. So you would have had that anyway. And so it is a little bit harder, but you know, kids they are smart. Like they are smarter than me. So it's like,
yeah. I hope that if we are still continuing this like distance learning or crisis learning in any capacity in the fall, I hope that we have time to like kind of plan out more exactly how it looks. Do you know what I mean? We'll see, but
yeah, like, what does your summer look like? Are you guys like trying to like train each other to like make distance learning work better? Because like, I mean, I know you guys are used to having your summer off, but like, I think you need to, like, we definitely have realized that teachers aren't paid enough, neither are essential workers, and a lot of work can be done from home. But you know, it must go on your mind, like, you know, you're still making aquariums for your kids. I've seen it. So, you know, what are you thinking about for next year?
Well, I have a summer class that I'm doing with my students. So, I mean, it's voluntary. They don't have to do it. But I've had a handful of students that are participating, and I'm going to start reaching out to families just to let them know that it's a possibility. But yeah, I mean, every summer, it really depends on the teacher. Like for me, I take classes over the summer. I try to learn as much as I can about, you know, new technology. We have meetings like co-teachers, you know, to try to figure things out. It really just depends on the year, the summer, but we'll see what happens this year. I mean, the thing is that they can't contractually require us to do any work over the summer, so it's all voluntary for teachers until the end of August. Most teachers, though, are working. You know, you're not working a full day. Like I'm not working full days right now, but there will be days where I might have a professional development class for a few hours, you know, or I'm prepping stuff for the online class that I'm having over the summer. So like those things happen. Do you know what I mean? So it just depends, but I don't know. Like I said, if we continue distance learning, I hope that at the beginning of the school year, we can be a little bit more
Organized.
Yeah, exactly. Just, and everybody on the same page, and, you know, really like these are the things that we really need the kids to do, because you can't expect kids to sit in front of a computer for a full school day. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, nor should they.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. So, but also I think there's like so many cool opportunities right now to really pull kids back in and say like, what's interesting to you? What do you want to learn about? And let's do those things. Let's look at those things. Let's show you how to access information, because really that's like, as adults, that's what we do, right?
Yeah.
You know, so it's not really so much about memorization. It's, do I have the tools and do I know how to use the tools to do whatever I need to do for my job? So I don't know. I mean, there's definitely opportunities to really pull some kids back in that maybe traditionally haven't felt like school is their fit. So it's just a matter of finding teachers that will do it.
From the ashes we shall rise.
Yeah.
Must
Fingers
say,
crossed.
2020.
Yeah.
Oh. So to close out the interview, this has been wonderful. Thank you for spending almost an hour with me. It's been great. I can talk to you all day. You know that.
I was just going to say, we haven't talked in a long time.
I know. It's just over Twitter, and I'm just like, I'm not getting enough Sheila on this platform. So to close out the interview, we're going to play a little game. It's called Ideal Aid Station. And so I'm just going to ask you a couple questions about what you would like at your ideal aid station.
Okay.
So salty snack.
Potato chips.
Okay, yeah, I played this, so this is a new thing. I've done it with one other person, and
I was just gonna say I heard it. Yeah. I don't remember all the questions, but just though for a minute I was like, a game. Oh God.
It's fun. Sweet snack.
Okay. Oh, I don't know. I like sweets. Any kind of gummy candy, like Twizzlers, Fruit Roll-Ups, Gummy Bears, Sour Patch Kids, anything like that.
Hot food.
I don't really do a lot of hot foods.
Have you run any cold ultras?
Yeah, but I don't. I
like
don't know.
If you're cold and you get to like
an aid station, I would not. I don't know. I've never really done like the broth thing. I'm not a big soup person though, so I think that might be part of it. Okay. And I don't understand people that do like quesadillas or like cheese.
Pizza.
I don't know about that. I feel like that would not do well in my stomach.
Mashed potatoes.
Mashed potatoes I could make work.
Yeah.
I could do mashed potatoes. Okay. That's my hot food.
Sports drink.
Tailwind for sure.
non-sports drink.
Ooh. I like caffeinated pop of any variety. So like
Favorite. There's
talking about Mountain Dew.
Yes. I was like,
But I'm like, I heard you talking about Mountain Dew. Mountain Dew's good. Code Red. Mountain Dew.
Yes, that is like answer A plus plus. Code
Yeah,
Red Mountain Dew.
it's really good. But I drink a lot of Dr. Pepper too when I'm running long.
Yes, I remember that from our Mini and the Genny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember that. Shoot, what's the next one? Oh, just item at an aid station, like gear or recovery device, anything.
2 times.
What's that?
2 times? Really?
Wait,
It's
Tums? Like the anti-acid?
No. 2 times. Like Body Glide or Vaseline.
Oh, lube. Okay, yeah, that was mine too. But I said petroleum jelly because lips.
Yeah.
I know that's not exactly eco-friendly, but whatever. Celebrity or like famous person, you can't pick Eric, that what I say is would make your heart stop if you saw them at your aid station.
Oh man. I don't know. I don't get like, I don't know. I don't get starstruck, I guess, but Chrissy Mail, I met a couple of times. She has connections to our local Rochester running community. And she was awesome. Like meeting her was really cool. So
yeah, she came out to Frozen Branch and I
yes.
met her there. Yeah.
Yeah. She's really like just a really nice person. So.
Well, you passed with Code Red Mountain Dew. You almost lost me when you didn't say chicken noodle soup or noodle soup for the hot food, but you brought it back with Code Red. Nailed it.
That's funny. I'm not a big soup eater, so it's not like a big thing for me.
It was like the one, like at JFK, it was just like life in a cup, and oh, it was so good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see how it would be good.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this interview with me, Sheila. I love talking to you, and yeah, I just can't wait till we can finally be in person again. And
I know, I hear you. Thanks for having me. It was good to see you.
Yeah, well, hope to see you soon, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. You too. See you later.
Bye.